It was maybe less utopian than I hoped for, but...
Sorry, it interests me, sorry to interrupt you and your questions. What did you expect? In what sense utopian? Because, you know, one of the fascinations is negative utopian. Like, would you, sorry to interrupt, would you agree or not, I'm more and more convinced of it, that the worst surprise that we got after February in March is that Ukrainians resisted. All my friends were secretly already glad. Don't worry, in 1 week it will be over, and then we will go through the usual hypocritical ritual, accusing Russia, then after some time make deal. And the bad surprise was that they resisted. They shouldn't have. So this was a true utopia. Nobody expected it. So you don't know where did you expect? More optimist, more pessimist?
No, maybe a less authoritarian outlook at the end.
Yeah, but on the other hand, my God, what do you want more? I didn't have time to develop it. In next book I do. I gave you a wonderful Stalinist prospect. Terror, egalitarianism, although Stalinism was not egalitarian. Terror, justice, voluntarism. Can I be more crazy?
Let's ask other people.
But don't you want to? I thought you're a proper Stalinist like me, which means people should speak, but people have nothing to do with empirical idiots. The leader knows better than the people what people really need and want to say.
We will see.
We will see. Okay, sorry, I stop now. Bitte.
Thank you, Slavoj. So my question is addressing your part with free will in your example with the girl and the river. So if we say that free will is to act as we were predetermined, isn't the act that we're then actually doing nothing but a projection of what is thought to be good, what is thought to be predetermined? So if I think I'm predetermined, isn't that what I'm actually doing? Nothing that I'm projecting of what should be determined or what is good. So isn't in fact the acting acting with free will just affirmative acting, and shouldn't I, in terms of real change, in terms of climate change or overthrowing capitalism, act against the things I think I am predetermined to? So not rescue the girl in the river, but rescue the girl in the river in a way other than just jumping in and pull her out like the traditional way. So
That's a good idea. Can you give me an idea how you would do this? You are alone on the edge of the river.
So you can take a branch and pull her out, for example, if there are trees, or look for a way or another. So my question is, where is the negativity? Where is the innovation in acting as if we were predetermined?
I see. Thanks very much. You know, first, I wouldn't go. I spoke with some scientists. I'm not so totally bluffing when I say predeterminism, because, you know, it's pretty horrible what is already going on. It's not just that the neurobiological proofs that you can give and so on and so on. It's also, for example, let's take the clearest case of the most sublime, although I don't think so, human experience, religion. You know that there already is a whole scientific, marginal, but nonetheless important discipline called neurotheology. They located in your brain, don't ask me how, to what extent it's serious, but I was told it is. They located parts where your brain gets activated when you have whatever you call it, religious, spiritual experience, and they can do it. In California, my friends are using, they call them transcendental pills. You know, you want a mystical experience or spiritual, no problem, you take the pill, it happens. Now, of course, theologists and others strike back, claiming that these transcendental pills just do an organic process, but what you experience as transcendental, sorry, this is nonsense, this term. It's not in the Kantian sense. It's in the false sense of transcendental meditation and so on. That what you experience is the content of your experience is nonetheless determined by cultural context and so on and so on. I agree with all this. But isn't there nonetheless something pretty terrifying in this, that your innermost spiritual experience, I can cause it with a simple pill. So things are more serious here. How to, Benjamin Libet, whom I mentioned, has a very original Hegelian, and you know why I mentioned it. I don't want to reply for too long, but it refers to your point, where is negativity? He has a very original theory, and he proposes a complex neurological line of argumentation. I will not go into this. That he says that we are looking for freedom at a wrong point. It's not positive content. That may be predetermined. That our free will enters when you sabotage, block a decision. So it's this Hegelian, saying no comes first. The zero-level act of freedom is sabotaging. And here, I don't have time to go into it. Here, I think that even Freudian psychoanalysis, I will not go into it now, properly interpreted, can allow us to save freedom. Here, although I take him seriously, Martin Heidegger, the philosopher, said one of the most stupid things imaginable about Freud when he says that Freud saw that our flow of thoughts, our conscious flow of thoughts, is inconsistent, has gaps, holes, and that the idea of the unconscious is to restitute the complete determinism, like proving that even where you think it's something totally contingent, a dream, a mistake, it's really secret determinism. So this is for Heidegger, Freud. I think it's exactly the opposite, as good readings of Freud demonstrated. Of course, there is unconscious causality and so on, but it's a bricolage improvisation against a basic trauma. What makes us human is a fundamental traumatic experience and so on. So it can be shown that, again, here I try in my books to connect Freud back with Schelling and so on, that the true mystery of freedom is not this obvious, rather superficial freedom that I mentioned. Oh, let's go to a patisserie, strawberry cake or that cake. It's basic decisions which cannot but be characterized as unconscious, because we never make them, but they are absolutely free. Let me take, I'm sorry for repeating myself, not from today, but from before, if some of you know a little bit of my work, the example of love, pathetic, traditional. You never fall in love in the sense of, now I decide that I will fall in love. This is vulgarity. Sorry for obscenity, but the point of this obscenity is that, like, I look around at, I'm sorry, vulgarity, ladies, oh, you have nice hair, you have nice legs, so let me make a list. That lady has 4 or 5 good features, let me fall in love with her. The moment you say this, it's not love. The paradox, it's subjectively true, of love is that you fall in love for a reason, but you see this reason only when you already are in love. It's not neutral, no? So, in other words, you never say in the present, now I decided to fall in love. In your phenomenal experience, all of a sudden you find yourself in love. And my point that I repeat all the time, and that's why I like love, old-fashioned, passionate love. Not that Buddhist bullshit, you know. I love all the sentient living beings. No, love is for me the most violent thing, horror. Love means I love you and fuck you. I don't care if all the world. Love is extremely singularized. I love you, a single person. So what I want to say is that, again, this happens and usually it ruins your life. My eternal example is I had friends who were living a happy life, you know, flirting, one-night stand here, there, good time. Then all of a sudden they found themselves in love. It was horrible. But okay, you see my point, no? That at this level I'm not pro-determinist. I'm just saying things are serious and deserve deep analysis. Sorry.
Next question, Thomas.
Yeah, thank you for the talk.
When you begin like this, I see you sharpening your knife behind your back. Pull the knife out directly.
Yeah, the knife relates to, you started out saying that in the 70s there were some Hegelians claiming that we can get farther with Hegel with ecological matters than with Marx, and I just wanted to know, who are these Hegelians?
Now,
and then
don't kill me. I have a distinct memory, but I'm now old and senile and I forgot who they are. I only know, maybe a good thing, that there were two English ladies who developed this.
Two
ladies. Women, sorry for this patronizing term, ladies, I know.
Yes, and then my question
But
related.
I don't know which term to use instead of ladies, Genossinnen or what.
Okay.
But no, you see and it's not only them. I find this, again, a very nice idea that, you know, with Hegel, for Hegel, to try to dominate the object is clearly part of what he calls, how does he call it, schlechte Unendlichkeit, you know, this infinite progress. We are never there, we go more. But I think this part of my general argument that we have to make a materialist reversal back from Marx to Hegel. And a proof, sorry if I repeat maybe not this line of argumentation, the proof that Hegel is more materialist than Marx for me is, you remember what he says in his Vorrede, I think, I'm not sure, to Rechtsphilosophie. He totally prohibits any predictions about the future. He says a thought can only grasp its own time, and he goes even further. He says when a form of life, gestalt or what, is already disintegrating, at that point a thinking can grasp it. But with Marx, he nonetheless returns to more this progressive attitude. He is not a determinist, but maybe Lukács had here the best term, objektive Möglichkeit. And I think what we need today is, what's the history of post-Marx Europe? Is how, sorry for the vulgarity, how wonderful idea got wrong. We had the second part of 19th century, relative progress. You had Bismarck, first element of how to call it, pension, of healthcare and so on. Everybody thought things are slowly getting better. Then we get First World War. We had Bolshevik revolution, freedom, haha. You get a certain comrade from Georgia, Georgia Stalin. You know, Hegel is, the core of Hegel is this basic, I wouldn't say pessimism, but how even the best ideas necessarily go wrong. So and the greatness of Hegel is that, his conclusion is not, okay, so let's do nothing. No, we have to, his whole problem with French Revolution is not terror was a mistake. No, we had to go through it and do it again. Sorry.
And back to the concept of nature in Hegel, do you think that there are, because you referred to Frank Roder's reading of Entlassung, do you think that there are specific forms of immediacy of nature that differ from other forms of immediacy?
It's not so much
if
immediacy.
Yes, in what sense?
Yes. I will be very brief because ich sprach zu viel. But you know what's my secret dream? I've spoken with some of them quantum physicists, that what Hegel maybe needed is something that all these wave oscillations, fluctuations, that Hegel's concept of nature, this immediacy which then gradually goes to higher and higher level, chemism, magnetism, blah, 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 is the story of nature, but to put it in the terms of quantum physics, nature is this, after collapse of the wave function. A nice problem with Hegel, and that's my dream, is to claim that that before, or not even before, but every nature, the way we know it, fixed object, presupposes a quantum universe. That's how I would denaturalize nature. Now, I know there are big debates here. I'm not pretending that I really am in it, but who is? Everybody knows nobody can understand quantum physics. No, it's just, it works. So I'm here a little bit more pretentious in the sense of, I think Hegel already accepts the notion of ordinary natural nature, to put it like this. And what I see in quantum physics is a vision of some strange domain where our common sense notions don't apply. And I wonder what Hegel would have done by it, because Hegel was very sensitive to this. Look, if in his logic there is a symptomal point, it is, you remember, logic science, first part, at the end of quantity, you have mysteriously long passage, 30, 40 pages, on, how do you call it, infinitesimal account. You know why? Hegel is bothered by it because something happened in infinitesimal account that, according to his notion of quantity and mathematics and physics, shouldn't have been possible. And so I wonder what Hegel would have done with quantum physics.
Thomas.
Okay, that's not my question. My question was about the idea of the end of nature, right?
Yes.
And so I wanted to ask you to clarify something. So the way you were describing it, in a certain sense, the kind of events that we are seeing right now turn out to show us that there's a certain end of nature. In a certain sense, we seem to have a part in it. Now, I was unclear whether that's progress. So whether the end of nature, on your account, reveals a certain kind of truth about reality, whether we were deluded before when we were believing in nature. That would be one reading. And but if that's the case, if that's the idea that it's a certain kind of progress, we now see more clearly what it is, then how would you describe what we are doing in terms of fighting climate change? What kind of an endeavor are we engaged in there? Do we try to return to nature? If we are doomed, we are lost. Yes, yeah. Exactly. But so what else are we doing then? What kind of politics of nature is it that you are advocating if we are supposed to fight climate change and, in a sense, are supposed to bring about conditions that are more regular again? Is that a nature without nature in a certain sense? So some kind of regularity without falling prey to this concept?
I'm more of a pessimist than you may imagine, because I am afraid to give a simple formula. What I'm just saying is that this would be my form of ideological big other in some orientations of ecology. I don't think nature of anything else can function as a kind of a ontological guarantee. Like, even if we cannot reach it, we have to strive to return to balance and so on and so on. I think that, sorry for this obscene way of speaking, but that nature is in itself crazy, imbalanced, and so on and so on. It's already, if we may speculate, in nature itself that balance is just a time between one and another catastrophe. Bitte? Yeah, okay, sorry. Entschuldigung, yeah. So you see, sorry, but what was the first part of your question that interested me much more? You began with?
With
Very good question. You know, here I'm in this old, tired, diabetic guy with heart trouble. But I find your question crucial because I get two answers as an immediate reaction. First is that I'm not so absolutely opposed to the idea of progress. You know what is for me the measure of progress? Not this, we are higher, more noble beings and that type of bullshit, but that a negative criterion, at a certain point, certain things are no longer possible. For example, although some people think I'm a totally male chauvinist, anti-feminist, no, on the contrary, I read, maybe some of you know it better, an analysis feminist which claimed that till around, I think, almost 1900, like a little bit over 100 years ago, measured by today's standards, most of the straight heterosexual sexual activity was, again, measured by today's standards, forms of rape, and so on. So and I don't buy, here is another example of that fake universal position. Now, vulgar historicists will say, we shouldn't project our own notions into the past. No, in some sense, we should do this. Isn't it something false to say, okay, if you beat your wife and don't even ask for consent where you have sex with her, maybe this is wrong by today's standards, but what right do we have to impose this on the past? We have the right. In some sense, if nothing else, we can look for the traces of resistance, feminist resistance, way back. So in this simple sense, now comes the bad surprise, I'm not only for progress, but I think one of the measures of the progress is, it's a joke, but a very serious one, I like dogmatic attitude, dogmaticism. What do you mean by this? Don't be afraid. I mean this. I ask you as women, I hope we agree that you wouldn't like to live in a society where you would have to argue all the time that women should not be raped, that this should be accepted as a zero-level social pact statement. So that if some tasteless man says, but women really enjoy it, blah, blah, to be beaten, all that bullshit, you don't even argue with it. In a normal society, such a guy should simply appear as an, I don't know, not even funny idiot, you know. So in this sense, I think we have a regress today. Of course, secret police armies were torturing all the time. But did you notice how after September 11th and before, all the time with Bush, then with Trump, torture again became, even if we don't agree with it, but a topic of debate. Should we torture or not? In special conditions, how? You had this totally crazy idea, you remember 10, 15 years ago, that torture should be done by you were a terrorist suspect, but with a medical help so that a doctor looks at you and examines you. This is, for me, true regression. I think the true progress of civilization, if I may say like this, is that certain things become self-evident. As for progress, that's another part, more pessimist. You know, doesn't matter if you know him, he's not an idiot. Although he doesn't attack me, because probably he doesn't know. Do you know your neuroscientist, artificial intelligence theorist, Thomas Metzinger? Oh, you should, my God. He wrote, also in German, I have the English translation, Being No One, a nice, fat book. And his idea is that with every new step in awareness, civilization, and so on, also new form of pain, of suffering, and torture emerge. We can torture a human being in a much more refined way that psychologically also and so on, that simply it's meaningless to do it with animals and so on. And here he gives Metzinger, I still don't agree with it, but a very nice rational argument against creating new hypersensitive post-human beings. He said, we only see the good side. It is some kind of a progress, but what if this progress means new, unheard of possibilities of suffering, of torture, and so on, and so on. So, if by progress you mean something new, really new happens, at a certain level I believe in it. Like, don't give me that bullshit French Revolution was nothing. It was a mega cut in the human history. On the other hand, no Stalinism without French Revolution. You know, I have a more tragic, but at the same progressive, but tragic view that there is progress, but every progress brings with it new forms of horror.
Last question of tonight, Christoph Menke.
Ah, that's what I like to. That's Genosse Stalin. No, like you put the limit. No, I mean. Last question, you said, no?
Last question, okay, it's me.
But was there even, sorry, I don't want to be hypocritical, but no woman asked a question. Yeah, that's what yeah. Okay, then he and she. At least that we gave into, get this fake equality or whatever.
It's not really equality then, but okay. So since you asked for sincerity, I will not thank you for your talk because I didn't like the Ukraine part at all. But
in what sense? Are you more?
No, I mean, you left out very important aspects in your description. I mean, for instance, which are pertinent to your topic. Yeah. I mean, for instance, the Ukrainian nationalism, which I mean, describes this as a fight for the earth, for Ukrainian earth. Even yesterday I heard a poet in Frankfurt reading from a poem where he praised the Ukrainian sky in the name of which they fight this resistance. So I mean that is an important part. I mean, and would have been a part of a nature talk. But I'm more interested in the question of the end of nature also, like Thomas. And I wondered whether you described the end of nature in a double sense. And I just wanted to know if I heard you correctly. I mean, both senses refer to the understanding of nature as, let's say, the Kantian conception of nature, an order of laws, right? Under laws and so on. But then you said, or did you say that the end of nature that we observe goes in two different directions? I mean, the one would be chaos, as you described it, and the other would be the machine. Yeah, your moon, your favorite movie. So, and what is the relation? Is it true, I mean, that we face two different, even to a certain sense, opposed experience of the end of nature in a chaotic way, yeah, and in the machinistic way? And is there a relation between these two ends?
A very good question. Sorry, I don't want to sound patronizing, but I mean it because you know why. Let me quickly develop the answer. I would say yes, but they are nonetheless interconnected in the sense that if we have this Moonfall, which is incidentally a horrible movie, just like this idea, this constructivist nation, it already presupposes chaos. It's only in chaotic nature that we can construct things like this. But may I add something first? Ukrainians, you know, my God, listen, I have a list of things also to reproach Ukrainians with. The last horror is this one. They went over the board. Not Zelensky himself, but some of the people around him. You remember, when was it, a month ago or when, where the Nobel Peace Prize was given to some Ukrainian human, but mostly what shocked them was Belarusian and Russian opponents of war. And they protested, Ukrainians. They said no. They didn't do anything to really resist, where fuck you, what do they mean? Many of them, my friends, got arrested and so on, you know. It's this incredible idea of stigmatizing Ukrainians' defense of Europe and so on against Russian barbarism. But you know why I still opt, and there are other things, like I wrote a piece where all of a sudden all those who like to publish me didn't want to, or it was marginally published, on the two colonizations. How the West is already, even before the war is over, colonizing Ukraine, you know. Conditions for reprivatization. Do you know that the West, big companies, especially American, food giants, agriculture, already own around 30% of the best Ukrainian. All this I agree with you. What I'm saying is only this. Do you know, you remember Putin's speech on, he gave two speeches just at the beginning of the war, 21st of February and 23rd. It was a short speech. Do you remember whom, only one name, because for him, Putin, Zelensky is unmentionable. Only one name he mentioned critically, Lenin. He said literally in the speech on 21st that the proper name of Ukraine should be, if you know the Russian, Ukraina imeni Vladimira Ilicha Lenina, like Ukraine called. For him, Ukraine was Bolshevik invention to power, and you know who followed this Leninist line to the end? It's a wonderful text by Trotsky, one of the last ones, in 39, written just before he had that accident with a hammer or what. You remember when there was again talk about Ukraine, and I don't know what talk was in 39, but Trotsky said absolutely Lenin's idea was each republic had the right to withdraw from the Union. And then he said, if some Bolsheviks say, oh, but this means ruining Soviet Union, Trotsky's answer is, so what? True proletarian internationalism means precisely this, that every nation had the right and so on and so on. Second thing, you know what makes, what I really hate, that's my, I don't know how it is here in Deutschland, but in my own country, Slovenia, we have now a strong half pro-Russian, even leftists, they claim tendency, they advocate Euro-Asianism. The idea is this very vulgar one, Asia, China, and West, liberal, United States. The only chance for Europe to survive is to connect itself with Russia, the third bloc. The problem is that the notion of Euro-Asianism has a long, very precisely defined history, and Putin refers to that history. Remember the key name, Ivan Ilyin, the key Russian emigrant philosopher in, sorry, I see your name.
Back to nature.
Sorry?
Back to nature at some point.
Okay, but just to me, one data. You know, I understand Ukrainians, not only Holodomor, but you know, 34 to 36, the notion of purge within the party was raised to a new dimension in Ukraine. Ukrainian Central Committee had 200 members in 1934. You know how many of them were alive 2 years later? 3. So it was shit. But I totally agree with you. We should criticize all of them. I am far from. Sorry. Die Frau?
Okay. Very last question.
I'm also getting to this last Ukrainian side of the question and also getting back to nature. I'm very much agree with this side, and I also thank you so much for supporting Ukraine, because you're one of the rare minds who really get the topic right in my point of view. Then I like the point that you take this war as a kind of chance to the European, to the European.
I'm not saying that it's written into it, this chance. I'm very modest. Maybe it will give a chance. I'm sorry. Please go on.
I see the chance is quite clear. My country, which is Russia, is a petrostate. Russia sells fossil fuels, oil and gas. As long as European Union will buy oil from Russia, the war will continue. And it's kind of clear. And the oil pipe goes through Ukraine, and nothing happens to it. It just goes non-stop. Every day, Russia receives enormous money, which allows it to continue the war. And as far as the Europe will stop buying oil and gas, the war will stop as well, which will give us chance to develop a greater sources of energy, a cleaner energy. This is a chance for a proper energy transition, which is quite urgent. But then comes the question, and the debates about the oil embargo, they go and go and go and on, and I just don't understand why European Union and Germany especially do not really take this task seriously. Why do they continue with this business as usual? I thought only Slavoj can really answer this question, because there is something
here. No.
there is
But
something about that.
I don't have, this is the big question, but I want to ask you, so do we agree at this? Here it's my big opposition to certain circles around Zelensky, that you know how horrible must have felt those Russian dissidents that got the Nobel Prize for Peace. They were attacked from Ukraine, but at the same time they were attacked from the official side of Russia. It's easy for Ukrainians, at least they can say, oh, we fight for our big nation and so on. They are alone. They are the true heroes, I would say. Because, you know, it's easy to die for your nation. But the most disgusting proverb that I know for this, in my Stalinist universe, death penalty, is to say, you know that horror, my nation right or wrong. That's horrible. I think as a Jewish guy who opposed what Israel is doing on the West Bank said beautifully, if you truly love your nation, you must be able to feel ashamed of your nation when it's doing something, something horrible. So that's why I think we should never forget the Russians. I agree that we should go into history and see, for example, the fact that some conservative Russians, pro-Putin, and my good friend, Jordan Peterson, both rediscovered Dostoevsky now, no? I always had, for me, there are much greater, Dostoevsky is the mega overrated guy. Gogol is already greater. Andrei Platonov is greater, and so on. There are maybe we should also, as those who really love Russia, use this opportunity to throw a new look at Russian history. What is truly great in it? And I don't have time to go on into it now, but I would like even to go into composers, you know, like Screw Shostakovich, false dissident, Prokofiev was better, although he was a little bit crazy and so on, you know. Maybe this would be another way not to go into this hard Ukrainian line, all the Russians are bad and so on, but to use this opportunity not so much to dismiss some Russian history, but to discover new half-forgotten aspects of Russian history. There is much more in Russian history, you know. That's why what I am afraid is that if they don't ruin us all, as it is always the case, let's say war, it's by no means sure, somehow stops. Ukraine will get all the hypocritical help from the West, of course, conditioned by poor market liberalism, and they already have plans how, and ordinary Russians will be in deep shit, how should I put it? No, we should never forget about this. That's why, as I wrote, the most horrible formula of Zelensky, here I respectfully disagree with him, is a struggle there is a struggle between Europe and Russia, Oriental world, or whatever. Yes, but then Trump and Jordan Peterson are also Orientalists. You know, these are pseudo notions. We should take this as a universal struggle. The ongoing war is really a fight which goes on in different forms in all the countries today. You know, and this is so sad when we even the West, isn't this paradox? Zelensky talks here like Dugin. Dugin also said Russian truth versus the European truth. Thus, for him, the Russian truth is the correct one, and so on, you know. So again, I think times are very dangerous, not just in the sense of nuclear war and so on, but who knows what will happen. And I think also with concern to nature and so on, our hope is still, okay, we recycle a little bit more, but somehow it will go. No, we will have to introduce a kind of also ecological emergency state and so on and so on. You know, our dream now, and that's how I maybe would explain that why Europe is doing it, you know, Europe is basically still caught in this inertia. Yeah, criminal things, Ukraine, but we must keep our way of life. And it's interesting how many, up to how is she called, Wagenknecht, no? Many leftists here buy this argument. Ooh, let's not endanger our standard of living and so on and so on. This logic of short-sighted pragmatism is very dangerous.
So that was the final word, dangerous.
But what is your killing final move?
I don't have a killing final move, no.
In the sense of, you know, at the end of the session, of Politburo, Genosse Stalin gave a synthesis and said, you don't have
I don't will give a synthesis. I think we crossed the nature-cultural divide in this debate many times. And a lot of these debates are open, as we can see, and we will not...
I want to ask you, you were here these days. No, you know you know what I want to ask you sincerely? I'm always an Orthodox guy who likes to guess what is the official party line. So I'm asking you, what was the official party line of today's and will be tomorrow's event? Did I violate the party line? What is the party line about Natur Kultur?
I think the party line is not yet decided.
Politburo still secretly. Me. Thank you.